Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another brilliant week of racing action in the iRacing Porsche Cup by CONSPIT, brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC known as iRacing and proudly powered by CONSPIT, the premier sim racing hardware manufacturer. With another week, we take a step forward and with it, we make our way to the final week of the 2025 Season 3 campaign. It is week 12 of 12 and we are here at the Hungaroring circuit in Hungary for what is hotly anticipated to be an absolutely brilliant round of racing as we bring to a close our top split broadcast schedule for this season in the Porsche Cup series. Spanning the best part of 2.72 miles and consisting of 14 corners, this circuit is likened to Monaco minus the walls in how tight and twisty it is, and through it all how difficult it is to perform an overtake and get it wrong and you very quickly find your way towards the barriers or at least the grassy runoff areas. But for our top split drivers today, they'll need to apply all their skill from the outset in qualifying, which is currently ongoing, if they want to put themselves right at the front of the field, because those who do not, well, they'll be able to battle the way through, but it will be a hard task and it will always feel uphill as the drivers roar the way around the Monaco Valley circuit. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you all to this live broadcast in this strength for field race. You're tuning in on YouTube at youtube.com and search for TX11TX, alternative Paul Walsh, and we can see a good number of you there in the YouTube chat already, including who we do say hello there to, Fabian HD, also to Carl McGuinness Racing, also to Max Andrews Racing, to Zach Haight, also there to Joey Latriniano, and also we say hello there, I believe. I think we said hello to everybody, to be fair, and it does seem as though the Nightbot's caught out somebody as well. But regardless of where you're tuning in from, well, you've got this broadcast on YouTube, and in the quarantine booth you have myself. My name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX11 or Brit in the Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and I'll be bringing you all your racing action as it unfolds, of which, from our what is our 1945 Greenwich Mean Time, GMT that is, or Universal Coordinate Time slot, UTC slot. We've got only one item on our schedule for today. It is our 14-lap race, and it's due to get underway in just under 3 minutes' time. So let's get to it and give you a quick recap of the championship so far and what we've still got lying in wait in our schedule. Well, we haven't in fact got much, but let's take a look at it anyway. Because as we can see, with week 12 of 12, it is the end of the season. We have made our way around the globe, from Belgium to Brazil to Japan to Australia to the Netherlands, a triple header in the United States of America, and last time out on Wednesday the 27th of August, it was the Algarve International Circuit that played host, and what a week of racing it was there in our top split. In the fact we got to see some absolutely brilliant battling, but at the very front of the field inside our top three, it was Gareth Higgins who came on home to bring his first win of the season in the top split broadcast ahead of Victor Chuzlev-Nielsen and Philip Hammer. Hammer may have been the pole sitter, but he didn't quite have the pace by comparison with his two rivals, and Victor Nielsen, perhaps of fame for the Danish F4 Esports Championship, as brought to you on iRacing in 2025. Well, he made his debut, having started in third place. He had no fear, made a move for second place over Philip Hammer, and when I spoke to him after the race, he said to me that was the absolutely most intense race that he's had of his iRacing career so far, and it definitely showed. But we've got a couple of those drivers on the grid today, plus plenty more regulars and some newcomers as well, and who's going to put themselves into the Hall of Fame for this Wednesday, the 3rd of September broadcast? Well, we're going to find out very shortly. Because as our drivers make their way out into the circuit, where is the Grand Prix layout of the Hungaroring, located near the city of Monaco in the Pest County of Hungary, that will welcome our drivers. 14 corners, as shown by the brilliant circuit map provided on iRacing.com's simulator. And a big thank you to iRacing, not just their simulator, but the track maps contained within it. But the one thing with this circuit is the fact that given it's located in the valley, which has strong winds passing through it, it is a circuit where the grip levels never really change. It never gets better, it never quite gets worse, and it's one of those circuits which absolutely puts drivers on the edge of the fact to do well at the Hungaroring, you've really got to drive on the limit and also know exactly where the grip levels are, because it will feel as though in some respects that this circuit never really gets acclimatized to drivers going around it, no matter how many cars are out there, even though we've got 23 Porsche Cup GT3 machines out there today. But as the drivers roar the way around the circuit, they'll need to be obedient of the rules, of which here they are. Setup-wise, it's an open setup series. Our drivers bring a choice of their setup to each and every week of racing. As for our grid, we'll be setting it via a closed qualifying session, which is underway, with the race commencing via a standing start as it's a tradition of the Porsche Cup series. Drivers shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 70 or more instant points, and should they get to 25, they'll be disqualified. But we haven't quite seen that this season, and we hope not to. We don't want anybody to put themselves into the Hall of Fame in the season finale for doing so, but let's make our way back to circuit side, ladies and gentlemen. As we do, well, our drivers coming towards the end of their final qualifying qualifying laps here, and as they do, well, let's talk a little bit about our strength of field for today. We've got a strength of field of 4,030. It's not our highest, but it's definitely not our lowest for this season. We've got some big names here, including who you can see on screen right now as he completes his second and final flying lap, Lucas Riers, as he roars his way down towards turn 1, but now he'll be cooling down with best performance there at 5th place, as Tobias Olsen's moved up to 3rd and already got out of the car. But as we do see it, Riers roaring his way on through. Well, we do have our highest I-rated driver, who's currently provisionally 2nd. That's Philip Hammer behind Gabriel Zisk by 2 attempts, but the qualifying lap can be a very different story compared to the race laps. And we also have a newcomer here in the form of Kevin Chevalier, and well, he's winding his way on down, as we do have 2 drivers yet to finish their final flying laps, albeit they're both going towards the end. Here's Jack Craft, new to the grid as well, as Christian Carlson off camera goes up into 5th there on a 47.097. And here comes Kraft towards the timeline. Yet to get a lap on the board, but what magic can he do here as he comes towards that line? Well, the answer is going to be, it's going to be good enough for 9th there. And well done to Kraft, the number 20 driver, really making it shine right at the end. And Kadeem Mohammed, meanwhile, well, he sets a lap. It puts him 19th there, 2.5 seconds off the overall pole time. But I don't think he's going to be too upset about that, because that is a solid effort there, 48.838. And he is our lowest I-rated driver there, given the fact we have 23 drivers, and the door numbers correspond with how they are rated compared to each other. Our number 1 driver, Philip Hammer, is the highest I-rated driver with an I rating in the region of 9,200, whereas meanwhile Mohammed much further down the spectrum by comparison, and therefore has the biggest opportunities to gain I-rated here, whereas Philip Hammer conversely has the biggest opportunities to lose it because of the sliding scale of the way the I-rating system works. But of course, it's not just about I-rated score on the line for our drivers, there's also the pride of taking victory, particularly when they know they're on camera and just on the grid in general. And well, right now, as all the drivers cool the way on down, we only try yet to get a qualifying lap in. I don't think he's going to get one. It is our number 22 driver of Alfio de Regibus, and he'll be starting right from the back of the grid, just behind the likes of Jamie Smith and Billy Smith there. But as we do see Lucas Riers make his way across that timeline, taking it nice and easy. Well, without further ado, ladies and gents, we're going to leave qualified behind and make our way to the grid for our one and only race today here at the Hungaroring in Hungary. So as the drivers make the way onto the grid, this is how they'll line up. And as we can see, line up a pole position for our final strength of field broadcasted race for this season. It is Gabriel Zisk from Slovakia taking pole position with 46.338. Philip Hammer for pole promotion esports. He starts his day 2nd there, 2 tenths behind. A further 10th behind is Ice Cold Racing powered by Maxim Races Tobias Olsen with an absolutely solid qualifying lap there. And he puts the freeze on the rest of the field, because behind him is Jorge Montanes, who starts full for Astro Esports. A sizable gap of 4.5 tenths before you then do get to him, and Christian Carlson from Norway and the Polish driver Lucas Riers will make up your 3rd row, much closer together. On row number 4, it's going to be the combination of Oscar Björnsson for Ice Cold Racing ahead of Carl McGuinness for Pole Sim Racing, as his best qualifying performance of the season. Well done to Carl there, starting inside the top 10. We then have Jack Craft, the newcomer from the United Kingdom, starting 9th. He'll be joined on the 5th row of the grid to complete the top 10 by Jonathan Lemerson for Ice Cold Racing. Then on row number 6, best of the rest, we will have none other than Bernhard Geiger, the Austrian driver, being joined by the Frenchman of Wilfred Gillet. Then on row number 7, we have Johnny Sandell, and none other there than Matthias Troutman with the Ice Cold Racing powered by Maxim Racing driver, getting to grips with one of our regulars on the grid. Then we have Kevin Chevalier starting 15th on his debut, ahead of Matt Strand for Cube Control's Reparto course. We get to see the number 9 driver out there once again from Norway, representing his home country proud and loud. And then he will be joined by Miguel Sierra and Thomas Noizo, who starts on 9th row of the grid, with Kadeem Mohammed and Arkadiusz Mahula on row number 10, completing your top 20. Then it's going to be Billy Smith and Jamie Smith, the 2 Smiths, on row number 11, with 23rd, last but not least, going to Alfio de Regibus, who completes your starting order. So 23 drivers make the way onto the grid, ladies and gentlemen. The grid is practically set, and we look all the way down to the very front of it, and it's going to be the battle of Zisk versus Hammer into turn number 1. But who's going to be leading coming out the opening hairpin? It's time to find out. So 5 red lights shine, and they go out, and it's lights out. Away we go here at the Hungaroring, as Zisk and Hammer both get good starts. No real delta between the 2 of them. Tobias Olsen, meanwhile, trying to get a little bit closer as they roar the way down towards the braking zone. But notice here, Hammer having to go defensive. Zisk is given a little bit of breathing room here as Olsen's trying to go round the outside. Under braking there as well. We see Christian Carlson under a bit of pressure, but he decides to stay safe as Lucas Riers right up the inside in there, and Riers back into 4th place. Behind him, Carl McGuinness has a bit of a slow start, but he doesn't lose, he doesn't gain, as Jorge Montanes, meanwhile, drops all the way down to 7th place. As we do see Olsen out the inside of Hammer immediately. 3 wide, meanwhile through turn number 2. McGuinness right in the squeeze with Jack Craft and Jonathan Lemerson. Lemerson in the end backing off, and Carl McGuinness making himself absolutely wide as humanly possible as they come through turn number 3. And now the field will calm down with a bit of certainty as a bit further back Matt Strand there looking to try and get the edge on Gillette as they head in towards turn number 4. But here it's 1 wide at most, because going 2 wide into this corner is tantamount to danger. Albeit the Smiths there making their progress count. And Jamie Smith ahead of Thomas Noisio, but Noisio immediately coming back up the inside there. Both the Lightning Queen machine. And Noisio on the inside heading in towards the chicane. But you can see that Jamie Smith enjoying the counter attack here further in the back of the field. But from them, through the chicane goes Kevin Chevalier, who loses out slightly to Matt Strand, but gets ahead of Sierra. And Sierra losing another place that he's gained as they roar the one around. We do have a slowdown, I believe, for Tobias Olsen. He does have a yellow flag against his name, so he will have to serve an automated slowdown for track limits, and that's going to enable Philip Hammer to retake 2nd place. But look at the front of the field, and you will see cutting his way out of the camera. Zusk running off as Lucas Riz dives up the inside there, up ahead of Tobias Olsen, and capitalises on the wounded slowdown there of the number 3 driver. And as a result, Lucas Riz now up 3 places since the start. He's had a lightning quick launch, has our number 5 driver, and moves up into 3rd place. But now everyone calms down for a brief moment as they come towards the end of lap number 1. And well, I say they're about to calm down. And suddenly Jonathan Lemerson and Johnny Sundell, the 2 teammates here from Sweden, both get very close to each other as they bring the opening lap to an end. So after 1 lap of racing, it is Gabriel Zusk who lead the slacking driver, the best part of 1.3 seconds ahead of Philip Hammer. Then you have Lucas Riz in 3rd, ahead of Tobias Olsen, followed by Christian Carlson. That's your top 5. Then Oscar Bernson is 6th, ahead of Jorge Montanez in 7th. Carl McGuinness is 8th, Jack Craft is 9th, and Jonathan Lemerson completes your top 10, with Johnny Sundell rounding off the best of the rest in 11th place, ahead of Bernard Geiger and Matthias Troutman. But we can see the field is now starting to split a little bit here, and some drivers are getting their tyre temperature locked in, whereas others, I think, are still trying to find the temperature that they so desperately crave. This Hungaroring, well, it doesn't give you much to work with, so you've really got to try and find the tyre life and temperature out there yourself, and then see what clicks together. But we can see in the rear of the picture that it's going to be a 2 wide exchange. That will be Billy Smith ahead of Kadeem Mohammed, who got ahead of him at the start, but now Smith is back ahead, and at the very back is Alfio Di Regibus there, still staying close. But we do have a word that Matt Strand has picked up a slowdown penalty for track limits at turn number 4, and he will have to find a way to serve that sooner rather than later, otherwise it gets upgraded within 30 seconds to what will be a drive-through penalty, and that's the last thing he'll want at the Hungaroring at a circuit where we are seeing it so difficult to make moves already. But from them, we come back to the fight for 3rd, and we look back for the rear of Lucas Riz's car, as we do see Olsen close. In fact, takes a little look at the inside. Is he going to be able to reach? Squeezes. There's contact between the 2 of them, and as they make their way down towards turn number 12, he's not giving up. Here's Olsen. He's going to go for it. He unsettles his rival, and that's how he gets it done. Now Lucas Riz will look to cut back into turn 13, or will he? No, he won't. That was very on the edge there, and well, I can imagine if both drivers had not reacted the way they had, they both would have been going around, and the rest of the field would have to have dealt with it. But that's why they're in your top split, because they know exactly what's on the limit of fair racing. And well, a little bit of a nudge is legal, but beyond that, then you start to get a bit contentious. But Olsen there played it absolutely spot on, though he had to force some pressure on the man who put pressure on him on the opening lap. But 2 laps down, and these 2 staying close together as further back. And Jamie Smith on the charge here versus Arkadiusz Mihuka, who actually enjoyed his time on the grid last time. I was very happy to be on the grid, and he's very happy to be back here once again, I suspect, albeit not happy that right now Smith is looking for the move up the inside here and breaking into turn number 1. And well, the White McQueen machine goes all in. It gets a little bit complicated there with Kadeem Mohammed quite slow on the outside line, but as a result, it does mean that Smith is going to get the place. And Mihuka, meanwhile, loses out as a result of being concertinaed into the back of the number 23. But as they roll the way through turn number 2, oh, that's Smith elbows out there, and that's going to be a go around for Billy Smith, who's had a bit of a nightmare moment. A small tap there, I believe, with the car of Kevin Chevalier. No malice meant, but as a result, that contact has sent the number 14 round to the grass, but quickly back onto the tarmac it goes. But looking a bit further up in the mid-pack here, we have Bernard Geiger and Matthias Troutman now running together. And as they roar the way on around through turn at number 5 and in towards 6, well, right now we can definitely see all of our drivers doing things right at this time, albeit what are they going to be able to do in due time? That's the big question, because I mean, in front of Johnny Sundell right now, he's running off in 11th place and trying to open up that gap even more. You can see there that right now Geiger is really becoming a little bit of a rolling roadblock, albeit that's not being discourteous to him. He's doing his best out there, and everybody else behind's got to try and find a way through, particularly if your name is Matthias Troutman, who we ride on board with here. And there's a big slide coming out of turn number 11 there for Geiger. He's struggling with that rear end grip at the moment, but Troutman not close enough really to try and force the issue with Gele and Strand queuing up behind him. Now, as they come out the right and in towards the left of turn number 13, well, right now, Troutman, they're having a little poke to the inside. Oh, gets very close there. You can tell in the way he's manhandling the steering wheel, the way he wants to drive, his racing line compared to Troutman's is very different. And Troutman again just goes a bit deep there, but look at a cut back on a V-shape apex approach, turn 14. Troutman, meanwhile, much more standard C or U-shape approach, and it's the differences in the lines between these two drivers that's upsetting Troutman right now. He wants to run his racing line, but he can't behind a driver who's driving differently, and as a result, the pace difference between the two of them is causing Troutman to get closer when he really needs to be a bit further back to get a launch into the next corner. So as they roar the way through, well, right now it's close, but not quite close enough, as our overlay there decides to have a mind of its own and refresh itself briefly. Apologise for that, but as they come down the hill, well, Wilfred Gallet over the back of this as well, with the number 16 driver from France here, he's looking at this right now. I think he's thinking to himself, how do I get through the two of them? And well, the answer is, we don't know in the commentating booth. We look forward to seeing if he can give us an answer as they head up the hill, because now Troutman's got to look slightly behind him, albeit never have to worry there, given the fact that going too wide into turn 4 is not easy at the best of times. But Jonathan Lemerson there up the inside of Jack Craft, and now here comes Johnny Sundell looking for the move as well. The two Max Sim Racing drivers here, both trying to get things done. Too wide into the chicane they go. You've got to be very compliant with each other here, gents. And as they come through in towards turn number 8, the left-right combination, the absolute slalom, or the Monaco section, if you will, that's going to be a completion of the move there. Sundell going to a very calm, cool, collective move. To be fair, credit where it's due, Craft being very smart with the way he was driving and showed a lot of respect. And well, as a result, now we have the number 10 up into 10th place. Well, that's quite poetic, but will it stay that way, or will we add another verse into the chapter of this poem? Well, as they come down to the braking zone, I think Werner Geiger's going to quickly add a couple of lines to the poem, because he roars his way through there. We completely breaks the pentameter, and as a result, goes all the way to the inside. And now here comes Craft backing him again. And Craft says, I can do you, but I can do it twice to you. And that is lunging into a braking zone. And well, both those drivers there know they're giving each other as good as they can get. But Craft now creates a long queue of cars behind him, and you can see that's Craft, Geiger, Troutman, Gallet, Strand, Sierra, and Chevalier. It is 7 cars separated by 2.5 seconds as they make their way down the start-finish straight. On towards lap number 5 they come, and as they do, well, Geiger's surely got to be thinking about a move here under braking. We look to the distant camera shot. And as they come onto the anchor, Troutman looks up the inside, can't quite find it. And I can see there that right now, Craft being quite clever the way he's positioned the car, forces Geiger to have to go out wide, and Troutman now on the outside of his rival. So Matthias Troutman's going to have an opportunity here, but not the one he wanted it to be. And immediately, look at that, Geiger falling slightly off apex there, just lets the car roll out a little bit, completely legal, widens the apex, and as a result forces his rival to go slightly more off camber than he would like, and therefore is able to hold the place. But right now, if you're Bernard Geiger, well, the problem is, as much pace as he's got, everybody behind him's got a little bit more, but nobody's able to find an inventive way through. As meanwhile, the ice-cold sim racing driver here of Matt Strand, and what we've said, he races for Cube Controls for Parto course, but in fact he's changed teams. We'll get that sorted for Season 4. More on that later on in today's broadcast, ladies and gentlemen. Well, as we can see, Matt Strand right now finds himself right in the middle of the pack. And he can't quite go forward, but he can't go back either, because if he does so, Miguel Sierra and Kevin Chevalier would love to take an opportunity. But as they all state train their way on through, well, we do look back to the front of the field. And well, the man who's starting on pole position, he's slowly running the way with this. He has set a purple middle sector on this lap. It's Gabriel Zisk, who right now is 2.5 seconds clear of Philip Hammer. And conversely, Tobias Olsen is falling a little bit away from Hammer over the last couple of laps. The lap deltas have gone the way of Zisk, then Hammer, then Olsen. So your top 3 expanding out, but they are staying together. But as they make the way onwards, Lucas Rios, meanwhile, he sits in 4th place. Not quite on the pace of the top 3 either. However, he is starting to break away a little bit from Christian Carlson. So therefore, that is enabling him to find himself in a bit of a no man's land. Carlson, in turn, is holding off Montanes for now, and Montanes is matching him for pace lap after lap. They're practically identical lap times between the two drivers. So therefore, that's going to be on the minds of both of them, in the fact that it's now going to be a war of attrition between them in terms of who makes the first mistake. However, whilst we do have a brief moment, let's take a look back at some moments early on in the race, and we're going to take a look back at what happened on lap number 3 for Billy Smith firstly. Now, this was Smith at the time. You'll see him there in the rear of the picture in the yellow and green car, battling his way out the inside of Kevin Chevalier. And on apex there, I think, just getting slightly off balance coming around through turn number 2. And the left-hand side tyre is going high on the apex curb. It's a lot higher than it looks from that camera angle. In fact, can we get on board with him? Yes, we can. Now, just listen in. Oh, goodness me. We was already unsettled there under braking. You can see fight at the steering wheel. The rear of the car lifted up on the final downshift to second gear, and then as a result, glided one way, then the other. The weight was transferring, and then a small tap, which Chevalier sent the car around, and well, no malice meant, but it just went wrong. We also had this for Kadeem Mohammed on lap number 5. This was coming down towards turn number 1 only moments ago. And what exactly went wrong here for our number 23 driver? And the answer is, oh no, that's not the way you want it to go. It was a bit of a tap there, and that was Alfredo Regibus making contact with Mohammed and sending him around. And then subsequently, I believe there was a bit of a moment for Regibus there, and was, in fact, that was not Regibus making the contact. That was another driver. I do apologise. And then Regibus losing his own volition at turn number 2. And I think the car that made the contact was Thomas Noisiu, in fact, as we return to your live racing. So a couple of moments there, but otherwise things are relatively sedate right now, but most likely building up to a bit of a crescendo as we come back to your live racing. Now, with regards to the traffic update of Matthias Trautmann versus Bernhard Geiger, well, Geiger is still ahead of Trautmann at the moment for 12th place. However, these two have broken away, with Matt Strand now really running behind Wilfried Gellet, so 14th through to 18th now becomes the big pack of cars here, and catching up to them are Arkadiusz Mikulka and also there Thomas Noisio. And in fact, I'll correct myself for a third time, it was Noisio who made the contact with Mohammed, it was Mikulka, I should say, made that contact, not Noisio there, as we finally get an idea of the car number and the door colour. And well, as they roar the way onward, speaking of Mikulka and also Noisio, well, here comes Noisio up the inside in the red machine, and as they head the way on around, well, there I think Arkadiusz deciding just to keep it nice and wide. He'll give up the place there, perhaps also sporting a little bit of damage from that unintentional contact from earlier on, and as a result, Thomas Noisio makes the place. Meanwhile, too wide here between two teammates, and well, the number one rule of racing, of course, is you don't take out your teammate. You want to beat your teammate, but not take him off the road. And well, Johnny Sundell does exactly that as he makes his way past Jonathan Lemerson and moves into 9th place. But Jack Kraft and Bernhard Geiger is giving chase as they rock their way around the circuit, and as they do, well, I can definitely see the Nightbot there has been stopping a few messages going through. We're going to get that fixed for Season 4. I don't know why it's doing that, to be honest. I need to switch it off because I want you guys to feel absolutely unfiltered when you can chat in the YouTube chat, because all the better for it, as we do say hello there to Aidan Pole and also to Max Andrews Racing, and also to Maxim Racing and Pole Racing out there as well. It's so good to see so many of you in here today. But as we make our way towards the halfway point of this race, well, halfway to go still, and as we do trundle away on to lap number 8, well, the battles are building up at the bottom end of the top 10, and also to a degree in the middle of the top 10, because Christian Carlson, he's lost Lucas Riz, now 1.5 seconds. He's lost the distance slipstream. Jorge Montanez and also Oscar Bernson are still with him, and Carl McGuinness is on a march here. As you can see, that gap to Sundell, the best part of 6 seconds behind. A long way back is Johnny Sundell, albeit I would imagine the number 10 driver here will just be happy to run in 9th place, given he started in 13th. But roaring the way around through turn number 1 right now. Willem Mercer's going to act as a bit of a rear gunner for his teammate there, and you can see the exit of that hairpin, the difference in the body language of the two cars. Sundell just has a lot more traction in the lower gears and coming out of those hairpin style corners, whereas Lemerson, meanwhile, seems to be much happier on entry into these more off-camber and loaded corners on the front right side. So I wonder if there's two different setups on the same car, and as a result, it's the difference between the two drivers, and perhaps they both prefer to set the car up differently because their driving styles. That's one of the big things of these Porsche 992 GT3 Cup cars, is the fact they're all single mate, they're all 510 horsepower, flat 6 powered machines from Germany, and with an open setup, it all comes down to how you like to drive the car and how you set it up for a given circuit. The Hungaroring, a high downforce circuit, no doubt about it, and a lot of drivers will be running maximum, if not very high rear wing, but I wonder if some have decided to just take a little bit of rear wing off to give themselves some straight line speed, but they've then had to tweak other aspects of the setup, such as the ride height, in order to be able to get the natural rotation that they so desire. But that's the secret of the trade between our drivers, and as they make the way and towards a later stage of this race, Matthias Trautmann and Bernhard Geiger still queuing together right now, and nothing happening between these two, other than the fact that Matthias Trautmann, I can imagine that by the end of this race, as we ride aboard his dashboard right now, he will have an image of Geiger's backside, as in the car, completely photoshopped into his mind, and it's never going to leave him, because right now, I don't know what he's got to do to find a way through, and I don't think Trautmann knows either, as he runs slightly wide out at turn number 13. A bit of a drift ride there for Jack Kraft, 2 cars up the road, so they all seem to right now be starting to push that tyre a little bit more, and the tyres will be feeling a bit of wear at this point, and some overheating is at risk at this time in the race. We have seen overheating play a big factor earlier on in the season, particularly at the likes of Spa-Francorchamps, for example, our season opener, and well, that could now really start to bring some drivers together, as that's a big error there from Jack Kraft, and also then more importantly, Jonathan Lemerson, who went out wide, and well, here comes Kraft through, here comes Bernhard Geiger, who's up the inside, and well, Lemerson's going to lose 2 places, the price of one mistake here, coming out of 1 in towards 2, and well, now into the switchback at turn number 3, Lemerson Mercer does not back off, but Troutman's now got a good opportunity here as he makes his way out the hill. Is he going to go around the outside? This is bold if he goes for it. He's going to try. He's going to try force this all the way to turn number 5. It's not going to work, but he gets Lemerson to go wide. Lemerson, as a result of running wide, now picks up a slowdown. Well, Troutman's got the job done in the end. He's forced Lemerson to make a further mistake, and Lemerson will know that. That's how we know he's got the slowdown because of the yellow flag tick on the time in town on the left-hand side of your screen. And, well, right now, Matthias Troutman will be hoping he can just get him through, and there it goes, because if Lemerson was to hold on to that slowdown for any longer, it would become a drive-through penalty very quickly. But you can see Lemerson not happy about it, and the way he served that, he served it legally, but he served it as tight as possible to the apex of turn number 8 to force Troutman to go deep and potentially make a mistake of his own. It's a bit of tactical work on the slowdowns there, and as they make the way down towards turn number 12, well, these drivers right now continue to push each other, and you can understand if everybody here now is starting to run out of a little bit of patience, because as we said, the Hungaroring is the Monaco without walls, and for all of our drivers, 23 drivers here, there is a lot of adrenaline pumping right now, and the one thing as a driver, you want to be able to overtake. So when you go to a circuit where overtaking is difficult, you've got to keep your cool, but it's so hard to do so when every place feels like a victory in these top splits, and as they roar the way onwards, well, Lemerson there having a bit of a skittish sideways moment coming out the final corner. That is going to give Galley and Strand a little bit of confidence here as Wilfred Galley continues to push onwards, and we ride aboard the nose bumper here of the number 16, currently chasing down 14th place, which is where he started today. Well, in fact, he started up in 12th place, I should say, so trying to make a bit more progress, but Matt Strand is right behind and looking from the front of the car to the rear. Well, there is Strand looking one way, looking the other way, and continuing to bob and weave every which way. And with Strand right now, a very decorated driver in a number of what is a league-based series, including the UK iRacing Porsche Cup, which I think he's still got the banners for over the top of the car, and as he makes way up the hill, not able to find a way through at the moment. As he gets very close there. In fact, that is extremely close, and he has to stop the car there before he ends up rear-ending Galley, and I think that might just be a slight miss of the braking zone there, but trying to put some mental pressure on as well. Meanwhile, up the road, we had a change of position into 6th. Has got Oscar Bernson ahead of Jorge Montanes, but how did he make the move stick? Here's a replay to find out. Now this was going through turn number 4 only moments to go, and well, it was Montanes who made a mistake there and slowed down to avoid picking up a slowdown penalty in the exit of turn number 4, and Bertson in the end made it to the inside, cut his way through. Oh my good lord, that was a big amount of power oversteer there as he tried to get the car settled down, so the number 6 driver had to really put himself on the edge to get that done, but he made it work. So Oscar Bertson, take a bow, good sir, because that definitely is a brave and bold overtake, but sometimes you've got to be brave and bold to get the job done. And well, speaking of jobs done right now, well, your race leader here of Gabriel Zusk, I think he'll be feeling as though the job is almost done. He's lapping still in the 46s, whereas everybody else is now lapping in the low to mid 47s inside that top 5, and well, Zusk is just gradually pulling away. But for Philip Hammer behind, I think Hammer here will be very happy to finish in 2nd place, and the reason I say that is because his run of form over the last few weeks, it definitely has oscillated up and down, and with that 3rd place last time out at the Algarve International Circuit, when he could have been fighting harder for 2nd, I think was in fact him just wanting to finish on the podium and not have a nightmare race again, because the prior weeks to that, he'd had multiple nightmare races, with perhaps the biggest one of them all being that sensational qualifying lap to put himself right in the front row of the Okayama Circuit, only to end up in the gravel before he even reached turn number 1. And well, a driver like Philip Hammer, he's got a lot of resilience, no doubt about it, but even the very best out there, they can't always keep taking the punches time and time again, metaphorically speaking, as he makes his way around. Meanwhile, Gabriel Zusk, well, it would be, if he brings this on home, it would be the first time we've seen him take an oval win in one of these Strength of Field races, as Zusk right now on to a personal record for this season, as our drivers continue the way of through. But as they do, we're looking back to the man in 7th with Jorge Montanes, no on the grid. He's still got Carl McGuinness chasing him, and McGuinness here right now hunting down what would be his best finish of the season in the Strength of Field race, which would be an 8th place here as a minimum, but if he can get into 7th, it'd even feel a little bit more sweet. However, he's got to try and get a bit closer, and that's the challenge as these laps continue to wear away. As meanwhile from him, looking back to the fight for 12th place, well, there is Matthias Troutman, who's at the head of this long pack. It continues to queue its way up, and further down the pack is Kevin Chevalier and Thomas Noisiu. And Noisiu, who started 18th, he's returned there after a bit of a dismal start to the race. And well, these two chased after Miguel Sierra, who's struggling a little bit there, coming out turn number 13. Can't quite find the grip, it would seem, the number 15 car, the yellow and red machine, with a very distinctive livery, to be fair, and all praise be to him as he roars his way out to turn number 14. But These drivers right now, different lines, and again, Sierra not happy with the rotation in his low-speed corner, so trying to really go for a deep in on the power early and X out of maximum power approach. Kevin Chevalier, meanwhile, a much more gradual approach, which means he has a higher average apex speed, but the problem is Sierra gives himself enough space on the exit of the corner to build up to the speed before the slipstream works in Chevalier's favour, and the difference of driving there very noticeable, and it's causing them to fall off the back of Matt Strand, who's just in front. But down they come through the left-hander of turn number 2, and it looks as though there, well, Sierra keep it together nicely. It's Noisy who now getting a little bit closer. Albeit both drivers there running a bit wide out of turn number 3. They'll get away with it that time at least. Everybody pushing each other to the limit. It's just a bit further up the road. We do have Jonathan Lemerson, who right now is between a rock and a hard place, as Wilfred Gillet is looking to try and get on through as we ride aboard with another 16 driver. He takes a peek to the inside into the chicane and decides it's not worth it, but he does get very close there to the back of his rival, and I think if he got any closer he'd be able to reach out and make hand gestures towards it. But going through turn number 8 and towards 9, here you don't really have the opportunity to get that close because you are in the dirty of another car, and it's a constant switchback sequence of corners. Gillet, they're turning in very early into turn number 10, it must be said, but that's to offset the dirty yet, and very early into turn number 11, cutting over the apex curve there, which has its own risks, of course, because if you set the ride height up too low, the car will bounce off of the curb, but not quite so. No risk there. As new fastest lap of the race to our race leader, Gabriel Zusk, a 46.624, well, he's up the ante. Hammer responds with a 46.899. Olsen, meanwhile, a 48.122 to Lucas Riz's 47.321. Surely Tobias Olsen's not falling off a cliff in the last 2 laps of this race. He does have a comfortable gap of 2 seconds, to be fair to Lucas Riz, but if that were to happen, that would be a surprise, and it could lead to us having a fight for the podium on the final lap. We will see what happens here as everyone continues to lock in and dial in all the way to the very end as they come on down, but no change at the moment. As I can see Zach Hertz there, a regular on the grid for the second half of this season, saying if it were not for his pesky job, he'd be on the grid. And Zach, we're missing you already, I can tell you that, because you've definitely proven to be a very feisty driver, but in a good way over the course of the season. We look forward to plenty more in Season 4 from yourself, good sir. But as everybody roars the way on down, right now, 2 laps to go here, and I think everyone now is itching, and I can imagine that Wilfred Gillet in particular wants to make this move happen, but does he go for it now? Does he go for it on the final lap? And when he does he throw all of his chips up onto the casino table, proverbially speaking, and go for the gamble, or does he try to find a way to do it safely? Because we've seen what happens when drivers go for lunges. It requires a lot of compliance, but when you get to the final lap of the race, the willingness for another driver to be compliant when you go for a lunge, suddenly it does disappear a little bit because everybody is more focused on holding on to their places right at the end of the race. And Gillet right now, you can tell first half of lap he is the faster the driver of the 2 drivers, but as soon as we get to this middle sector, the dirty edge just forces him backwards, and it's not helping him whatsoever. He's just got no way of offsetting this. He runs very wide of apex there at turn number 11. It may only be centimetres by comparison with his normal line, but those centimetres cost him 2 tenths by comparison. And Matt Strand, meanwhile, behind is literally sat here holding Miguel Sierra, Kevin Chevalier and Thomas Noisy all behind as they roar their way then towards that final lap. The speed of the final lap, he's already on his way towards turn number 2. Well, here is Gabriel Zusk, and right now completely in control by almost 4 seconds over Philip Hammer, as Hammer, meanwhile, makes his way up behind for pole promotion esports, chasing after the pole racing machine. And then Tobias Olsen, well, he's absolutely looking ice cold for Maxim Racing, and right now he's keeping his cool there despite the lap times falling away from him somewhat. And Lucas Riz is closing that gap down quite quickly, but will he have enough time in this lap to do it? Theoretically, I don't think so. I think we'd need a mistake from Olsen, but you never know what could happen over the remaining 2 miles of this lap. Then in his 5th place, Christian Carlson, well, he's in a bit of no man's land, breaking away from Oscar Bernson and also Jorge Montanez. And, well, these drivers staying very tight together. And Bernson right now really forming the final battle inside the top 10. And Montanez trying to get back a place. He's lost 3 at the start, has Jorge Montanez in the black and red machine. And Carl McGuinness, meanwhile, just watching this from behind and thinking, what can he do other than keep chucking the pace that he's got at the circuit? I don't think he's quite got enough to get nice and close. Up from them, looking back to Sierra, Chevalier and Noisier for a brief moment. They're still all together here as they come through the chicane. No change between them as they get towards the much tighter section of the circuit where overtaking becomes a challenge. But from then, ladies and gents, we look back to the front of the field, and well, he's been on the grid with us for multiple weeks this season, but he's yet to take a win. But in the season finale, Gabriel Zus sees the checkered flag, and he takes victory by a comfortable margin of 4.5 seconds. He is your winner at the Hungaroring in the straight for field race, with Philip Hammer coming on home to the run-up spot there in an absolutely solid drive. And in third place, Tobias Olsen. He looked to be struggling towards the end, but he holds off the charger Lucas Riz for the podium, with Christian Carlson in 5th place ahead of Oscar Bernson and Jorge Montanes. Carl McGuinness takes a season best of 8th ahead of Johnny Sundell, who on his debut brings on home a gallant 9th place ahead of Jack Kraft, who on his debut finishes 10th. And then we have Bernard Geiger celebrating there, being best of the rest of the length. What a drive from him, a brilliant defensive drive ahead of Matthias Troutman and Jonathan Emerson, with Wilfried Gallagher and Matt Strahan complete your top 15. Miguel Sierra holds on to 16th place ahead of Kevin Chevalier, with Thomas Noiseau finishing 18th ahead of the Smiths of Jamie Smith and Billy Smith, who rounds off your top 20 after his difficulties towards the start of the race. And then your final 3 finishers will be Arkadiusz Mihulka ahead of Kadim Mohammed, and then lastly Alfio Di Regibus will finish off your running order. 23 drivers. And an absolutely brilliant race day, ladies and gentlemen. Not as much fighting as we'd normally expect, or we'd come to expect from the previous weeks of racing, but to be fair, always on a knife edge in the middle of the pack in particular, towards the bottom end of the top 10 and also outside of it, where one small mistake would be the difference between the driver holding on to their place or finding themselves too wide into the next quarter complex. But in the end today, nobody could touch Gabriel Zisk right at the front of the field, who led it from pole all the way to the checker flag. But as Geiger and Troutman demonstrate, they took a bit too much fuel and make the way on around here on their cool-down laps, and well, they definitely enjoyed a great fight. And I think we might have 2 rivals here that's definitely going to carry on for the remainder of this week and going into the next season, because they've definitely showed each other today what's what in terms of brilliant battling. Well, let's take a look to the scenic view, and with those provisional race results subject to Eddie Stewart's inquiries for our straight for field race for week number 12 of the 2025 season 3 campaign for the iRacing Porsche Cup by CONSPIT at the Hungaroring. And as we can see, after 14 laps of racing, Gabriel Zusk, your winner in the end by 4.3 seconds over Pole Promotion Esports' Philip Hammer. Ice Cold Racing powered by Maxim Races Tobias Olsen was third, made the early progress to hold on to third place despite trying to steal Philip Hammer's second place early on. However, could not quite make it work and then had to settle in. Lucas Riz, meanwhile, I do wonder if he qualified a little bit higher, could he have been chasing third if not second, given how his pace grew as the race went on. He started 6th, made his way into 4th on the opening couple of laps. A brilliant job there from the number 5 driver, and I think he wanted a little bit more. 2.5 seconds behind him, Christian Carlson, where he didn't want any more than 5th place, so that's exactly where he started. And a good drive there from the number 7 driver from Norway, with the Swede of Ice Cold Racing's Oscar Bernson in 6th place, fighting his way up from 7th, and Jorge Montanes, conversely, for Astruto Esports, started 4th, struggled early on, fell down to 7th, and couldn't quite find his way back up from there. Still, he kept behind him, Paul Sim Race's Carl McGuinness, with the number 13 driver there taking 8th place, a season best and a solid effort, ahead of Johnny Sundell, 9th on the finishing order for Ice Cold Racing, and behind the Swede, it was the Briton on his debut of Jack Kraft, who rounded off your top 10. Best of the rest in 11th was Bernard Geiger, the Austrian driver holding off fellow countryman Matthias Troutman, so he could always brag that one over his fellow countryman. They were only separated by half a second at the line, with Jonathan Lemerson in 13th place, ruining what could have been a 10th place finish if it weren't for a slowdown and a mistake, but the Ice Cold Racing drive still held off Wilfried Gallagher, the Frenchman who enjoyed a good amount of battling today, and Matt Strahan completed your top 15. In 16th, it was Miguel Sierra who held Kevin Chevalier and Thomas Noiseau behind. The 2 Frenchmen there couldn't find their way through and couldn't pick their way past each other, with Jamie Smith and Billy Smith round off your top 20. And behind them, to complete your finishing order, all of our starters finished this race on the lead lap. Arkadiusz Mihulka in 21st, and behind the German driver we did have Kadim Mohammed and then Alfio Di Regibus rounding off your 23 finishers. But as we saw, our top 3 of Gabriel Zusk, Philip Hammer and Tobias Olsen, they were in a bit of a class of their own today, and therefore they've definitely deserved their spots on the podium come this season finale race. But that's all our racing complete, ladies and gents. But not just for today, but for our top split broadcast for this season. What a brilliant race to end on. And just before we do wrap up and talk a little bit about Season 4, let's have a word about our title sponsor for this series. And that, of course, is none other than the hardware provider for sim racing, CONSPIT. Let's hear a little bit about them. If you are looking to take your sim racing to the next level, then why not consider CONSPIT? As the pro driver's choice of sim racing hardware, CONSPIT offers one of the most comprehensive lines of hardware products to sim racers around the world. Whether you're in the market for wheelbases, steering wheels, pedals, peripherals, or rigs, CONSPIT's extensive experience in the motorsport industry means every one of their products is fine-tuned for success at the highest level. But do not just take our word for it. We're brand ambassadors including 2022 Grand Prix Macau GT Cup champion Luo Kaliu, 2022 Porsche Carrera Cup Asia champion Liu Ye, 2022 Chinese Touring Car Championship champion Rodolfo Avila, and 2023 GT World Challenge Asia GT3 Cup champions Climax Racing. You shall be in pole position for victory when you invest in CONSPIT's hardware. If you'd like to know more, be sure to head to conspit.com today. So, ladies and gentlemen, with that, we now look ahead to next season. And, well, it's been so great to see so many of you enjoy these broadcasts week in, week out. And, well, I'd like to make an offer to you. Would you like to see these broadcasts continue to Season 4? Because I definitely would. And if you do, I'll be there bringing you the racing action week in, week out, once again from Season 4. The schedule is still being finalised. I believe the schedule has been sent to iRacing, but we're not going to show it here just in case it is changed at the 11th hour, and therefore we don't want to miss their expectations. But we will be back bringing you all the racing for our top split week in, week out in Season 4. And, well, we'll confirm the dates. If you're not part of the official iRacing Porsche Cup Sim Racing Discord, do join it, because that's where you can stay up to date with the latest top split broadcast schedule, and then you can figure out how you can be on the grid, alternatively how you can tune in and catch all the racing action for friends and family out there, or if you just want to see our top split stars go toe-to-toe over plenty of rounds of racing. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, that brings the curtain down for Season 3 of 2025 in the iRacing Porsche Cup by CONSPIT. It's been a brilliant season, no doubt about it, and it's definitely set the time for what's to come in the final season of 2025. But until then, we have been the iRacing Porsche Cup by CONSPIT. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time for the start of Season 4. I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Britain a Spit. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and much like our drivers, most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.